The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
There's something that can be done as a possibility and it's going to benefit, then we'll try to connect those dots. You know what you're capable of, you've run at that pace, and now you have to redirect. Welcome to Moments of Strength. I'm your host, Mary Kaufman. In this show, we celebrate the incredible resilience of mothers, showing up through life's challenges, growing through every triumph, and carving out space for their own passions and identity. We're here to uplift and reassure every mom that you're not alone, and asking for help is a powerful strength. Each episode brings a story of motherhood's beautiful chaos. I'm happy you can join us for today's inspiring episode. And today's guest is Keziah. Keziah, thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
I'm so excited that you're here.
And I'm happy to be here.
And also, happy birthday.
Thank you.
I wanted to slip by.
Yes,
so this is a fun way to spend your birthday.
It is.
For me.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, good.
I know when you sent the link for the calendar, you know, and I saw the 27th open, and I'm like, you know what? Let's just go for it.
Yes.
What better way to spend my birthday is
celebrate
doing this?
You.
Yes.
Yeah, and your story.
Thank you.
So I'm so happy to have you. And just for people who maybe haven't seen before, this show is really centered around sharing life experiences of moms and telling the stories of their journey to and through motherhood. And so we'll start out, talk a little bit about maybe your background, as much or as little as you want to share. Okay. That really ties to what happens later in our life, because the things that happen when you're young impact what happens as you grow, as you know. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and then it'll sort of be a natural progression through your journey, and hopefully, viewers can pull from your life experiences and know that they're not alone in that. So okay, so let's start with the beginning.
Yes, so I would really, when I look back, I really loved my childhood. I had good friends, I had a great life with my siblings and, my mom, and I was really the child that stood out, definitely different and set apart from my siblings. And it was almost like I just loved the limelight. And I grew to love that just because I was pushed from teachers to sign up for certain things, forensics, do poetry, do storytelling, get into debate. And then, so that was kind of like the highlight, and I was loving that. And so I was like more of that boisterous child and just always doing things, practicing things. But so for the most part, that was kind of like my life, just doing a lot of speaking and talking, advocating, at a young age, standing up for my siblings, at that. My mom was very loving, to all of us, and was raised in a single family household. My mom did marry my father. There were some memories that I do recall with my father being present, but not there. And eventually they divorced, and I know that there was abuse that was in that. There were things, regardless if my mom, what my mom shared, I remember as a little girl, like some of the verbal, the emotional, abuse that was happening. And then, later, my mom, it was just us and, it was really me and my brother for a long time. And then as time developed, my mom got married again, and, she was with my younger sister's father, and then married my youngest brother's father. And, for the most part, those, for me, looked healthy. I really loved my stepdad, which was my youngest brother's father. And then those relationships just had fallen apart, right? And as a young girl, you're going through life not realizing that cycles can be repeated,
Yes.
you know, and your environment and how you are raised really has an effect on the things that you're seeing, the things that you're hearing, and it become normal. Like, oh, well, my mom got through this, I'll get it through it too, you know. So, you know, still life is just going on though for us, and I'm watching my mom, you know, just really be this strong woman, you know, and going to work, taking care of us, even after these relationships have failed, she was still trucking along. And so as I began to get older and start transitioning, here it is now, you know, I'm in middle school. And again, I'm progressing, I'm doing a lot of things. And I feel like at this point too in my life, I'm doing a lot of connections, making friends. And I feel like those individuals that I came in contact to was taking my mind off of the things that we're going through at home. You know, there was moments where I remember, you know, we did face homelessness. I did watch my mom struggle. And what I love about my siblings during that time too is that we really just showed that we appreciated our mom. And I look at our generation now, I mean, even with me having children now, like a lot has changed, you know, but I really think about how we just really appreciated our mother just being hardworking. So then here it is, middle school is preparing me for high school. And I would say the gifts that were in me, you know, especially that theatrical speaking, it followed me. And I went to the High School of the Arts in Milwaukee. So I was born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I go to the High School of the Arts, and lo and behold, not knowing we had to audition to get in.
Oh my gosh.
And there was a theater major. I audition, I make it. And my best friend, Natasha, that I met during middle school, I'm like really telling her, like, you gotta go. We can't separate. We need to be together. And so she gets in, she's a theater major with me. And we're just soaring. I became Miss Juneteenth runner-up, you know, and my skit was for Miss Juneteenth was Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, really?
You know, did that, and you know, creating a speech around that. So this is just still going with me, you know, and again, not realizing that poetry, acting was therapy, you know, for me in some areas, as the little girl had suffered a lot of sexual abuse, molestation growing up, and a lot of that I had suppressed. And as I was doing more of speaking, I realized that I was feeling that pain as a little girl, right? And you know, there's a poem that I had created about how broken girls become wounded women, you know, and that's just kind of like the highlight at the end of this poem. And I realized that, you know, that broken girl was starting to become this wounded young lady that eventually grew into this woman, and I was carrying this stuff. And so as I'm developing, I'm now like getting courageous, and now my poems are shifting from, you know, just you know, what we're experiencing in life versus more of like my trauma, you know, and it wasn't really in depth then, you know, back then growing up, it was kind of like, do we even talk about this stuff?
And people they didn't dig in as much. Now we dig in immediately, and it's more accepted, or it's just more normal. And back then it was sort of like quietly, maybe some teachers were like, hey, what about, even if that, maybe they didn't say anything. Not to their discredit, it just wasn't what was talked about.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the warning signs, you know, I know that I went into a more of a state of like stillness, quietness, moments where my abuser, perpetrator, being my cousin, not wanting to go over to their house, right? Mom wasn't really seeing those signs, like, why is she acting this way? And, you know, and so it was more like, okay, this is what I gotta do, because mom gotta get to work, you know, and so internally I'm like, you gotta be a tough girl.
This is your role.
Yep.
Yeah.
And talking to myself like, well, I'm just gonna stay close to such and such that's in my family, and I won't get touched this time, you know, and so having to battle in my mind, you know, internally, and hold things in. And then I went to this place of, if I say something, I break up our family. You know, if I say something, am I believed? You know, if I say something, will the question be why you didn't say anything the first time? You know, but those questions were what my perpetrator was saying to me. Nobody would believe me.
Right.
Yep, we'll never have family functions, and, you know, and just saying that bad things would happen. And so here it is, I'm still developing, and I'm now turning my pain into purpose, but not realizing that through high school. I'm just going through these motions, and then boom, here it is, I meet somebody outside of my school, and I knew everything that I was doing was right. You know, I was traveling, I was in forensics, I was winning first place, I'm bringing my mother along, I was going to these competitions. And I'm like, Mom, people come with coaches, like they get help, but I write my, you know, stuff, and, you know, but I'm like, Mom, you could start traveling with me, and I would just say you were my coach. And that's what started happening, you know, so my mom and I were very, very close. And later in life, realizing that actually had affected my siblings, feeling like my mom gave a lot of attention towards me. So here it is now, high school, and I'm meet this guy, and I'm pregnant at 17.
Oh, wow.
Had my son at 18. In Milwaukee, they had just built this school called Lady Pitts.
Okay.
And the school got worried because here it is, I'm 3.0, I'm 3.5, I'm 4.0, you know, I'm just soaring. I'm a great student, and graduated the top 10 of my class. But they're like, no, we gotta save her. Like, how did this happen?
So you were were you a senior?
I was, so I got pregnant toward the end of my junior year.
Okay, so you still had a year left.
I had a year left. So yeah, by the time I was 18, my son was born, and I'm just now, I graduated like at 18.
Okay, yes.
Yes, because my birthday, right, almost at that school start. So, you know, so they bring my mother in, and they're trying to convince her to get me into this new school that they built, Lady Pitts, for teen pregnancy, you know, and I'm thinking like everything that I dreamed of going to the High School of the Arts. I got my best friend here, like this is my family. And I remember going to my mom, and I said, Mom, like, you gotta believe in me. Like, don't believe what they're saying. I won't become a statistic. My seed won't become this statistic. Like, Mom, let me just stay in this school.
Yes.
And I worked my butt off to be able to graduate the top 10 of my class. I had family, friends going to the school, picking up my homework. Once I had my child, they would go up there and get my homework, come home, and I would, you know, they would give me the homework and I would do it. And this was my 6 weeks of having to be out, you know.
And take care of a baby.
And the baby,
and do your homework.
And do my homework. It was just like, what happened? What was I thinking? And now what's going to happen with my life? And I soared, and I really was struggling now with, do I go off to college?
Right.
My son was still small. You know, I had a great team. My mother was very supportive. Like, you still go, we'll take care of him.
Yes.
I was accepted into UW La Crosse.
Okay.
Their rule was incoming freshmen must live on campus.
Okay, yes.
And so it was like, am I going to do this? And so I decided that I was going to go. My mom was now like the caretaker of my son because I'm gone away,
Right.
the majority of the time. But I just felt like God was like a huge blessing because UW La Crosse had Family Day. It was also like sibling day there. They had, even for parents. And we were able to like have our children come and stay in our dorms with us.
Oh my gosh.
And so when I think about like his birthday, it's always like attached to all these people from not just high school that helped raise him and was there. And, it was a great support. Like people were like, Keziah, you got this. It wasn't the ridicule. It wasn't, like, oh, we lost faith. But I'm telling you, even, my classmates, class of 2000, they were there and they were still rooting me on. It wasn't judgment, there, and I love that. And I got that same when I went off to college. People like, we got them, I'll skip class, and it was just beautiful. La Crosse from our home was 5-hour drive.
Right.
And so I was homesick. I was going home a lot, weekends going to see my son. My mom was definitely dedicated to bringing him, and overall, it just worked out. It worked out, and so I got through. I went through this stage of I want to come home. I went through that stage of I'm homesick. I miss my son, and I really wanted to give up. Especially with not so many people that look like me on that campus.
Oh yeah.
I went through a lot there. Where it was, people were coming up to me, from all parts of, this world of like really saying, I've never seen a person of color before, amazed at my hair. Can I touch it? And I was really, really different. And nowadays, again, times have changed, but I'm all about teaching. I'm all about meeting people where they were at. And even in that young mindset back then, I didn't take any of that as offense. I'm like, yeah, you could touch it. How did you get them? Like, this is extensions with my hair, braided in two. And, some people were just like, man, never seen, a person of color except on TV or a magazine. And I developed a lot of friendships, people that didn't look like me because of conversation. But I did also have my times where it was like, I can't do this. It's too much judgment here from people that don't look like me. And it was rough. And just as I was getting ready to throw in a towel and give up, I met my second bestie, Latte, and, she being a part of her world, it was a different world that I was now connected to. And I feel like our bond happened immediately. I was sharing with her what I was going through, the dorm that I was in, and I wasn't getting along with my roommate. I felt like there was judgment there. And I'm talking about everybody was like, you can stay with us, you come over here. And it was like they literally moved me out my dorm. And
Was she older than you? Had been there longer?
Yes. Yep. Latte had been there longer. I feel like, 2 years? So the year I came, I believe she was a junior, and then that next year a senior.
Okay.
And so then I just felt like I didn't have anybody. I felt lonely. I felt depressed when she had left. And then I went back home and finished school at UW Milwaukee.
Okay, yeah, close.
And and then it was still like, man, I'm a mama.
The whole time.
The whole time. What am I doing? And going back home, it was more like I met my worst nightmare. I ended up meeting my husband. I was married in my young 20s, and created our beautiful daughter. But I was married to somebody that wasn't who he said he was. Liar, manipulator. And this strong girl, right, that was a mother, knew who she was, knew where she was going, knew the plans that God spoke over me, the plans I have for you, the thoughts that I think toward you. I knew that for myself. I never wavered with who I was. I never wavered in my resilience, although times got hard. Waking up every day and having to take care of my son and look back at how far I've come. When the high school thought I would fail, when they thought my son being birthed to a pregnant teenager, you would be a statistics on the street. And so I'm looking back like, no, and now I'm in this marriage. And one thing that I say is, again, going back to that environment, right? I didn't recognize the cycles that I was repeating.
It's so hard though when you're in that.
Yes.
Because you're not conscious of that, and you know this in your line of work too. It's your brain seeks the familiar. It doesn't parse out what was good or bad. You have to consciously learn that, and so you can be a strong, powerful woman. But if that little girl is not healed or hasn't been introduced to, you know, what should have been or what could have been, and the things that weren't her fault, and you know, the fact that you come into an environment sometimes where the cards are against you, you know. If you don't heal that, you can be strong in a sense, but you'll always have that vulnerability. And that what it was, you know, and people will come in seeing what the weaknesses are, you know, and this man I felt came in definitely, you know, studying me, and his aim goal was to get me weak, to break the strong woman, to make me fully rely on him. And I say, like, you know, now, you know, as I enter into my field, but I'm like, when I look back then, abuse, we only heard about a physical, you know. Not emotional.
Right. It wasn't, we didn't hear about mental. You didn't hear about the verbal, you know, even financial, you know, abuse.
That's a great point.
And in this marriage, I went through all of that before the physical happened, you know, and so my life now for school is on pause. Now I'm still taking care of my son, and you know, feeling like we're supposed to be raising him together. You know, he came with me. I'm pregnant now with our daughter, and I'm feeling like I can't tell people what I'm going through because people didn't want me to marry him in the first place. And now I'm stuck between this rock and a hard place. So I'm now fighting internally, right? The emotional abuse, the mental abuse. You know, I'm eating the words, you're no good, you will never be nothing. You know, I'll kill you, and you know, if I can't have you, nobody can. And I'm going through all of these emotions where that spirit of suicide began to creep into me. And so I had this notion of, well, I won't ever give you the justice of ending my life. I'll do it myself. And not realizing, too, that our words are powerful. And the more he said it to me, the more I thought about how I would do it to myself. And there were many attempts in my life. And each attempt, God saved me. I give nobody else credit where I know I should be dead and gone. Even at the hands of my ex-husband. And fighting through that. And now here comes the physical. And I'm literally fighting for my life. Had to run out the house one day, like half dressed.
Oh my gosh, Sam.
Yes, and that was the start of me getting help. And realizing, no, you've been abused a long time ago. And I'm like, no, he just started hitting me, and you got the domestic violence, you know, people telling me like, no, you said this, that's verbal abuse. You said this, that's mental abuse. He stole all your money, drained your bank account, that's financial abuse. And I'm like, whoa, and I'm just breaking down.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, and so this was a cycle that I was in. And when I finally was able to gain strength, you know, at this point it's almost like you have to say something. I had people that were for me and there, you know, and I felt like, and even with family, like, told you so. You know, and you feel that, and you're like, and this is why I didn't say anything.
Yes.
And the people that said, I told you so, or didn't lend that hand, those were the people that I really wanted there the most. But I found that it was strangers and people that just was getting to know me showed up for me more, you know. And so I'm going through this healing. And it's hard. I'm just still in my 20s, 23,
You've got
20.
these kids.
Got these kids now, and I'm still trying to truck on. I'm trying to be this strong parent and not cry in front of them, but go out to my car and, you know, and I'm just trying to build. I'm trying to build what was destroyed, and it was hard. You know, forget everything that I lost. I don't know who I am anymore. Right.
Yeah, that's
How do
very
I
hard.
get that back?
Because it wasn't just your stuff, you know, and it wasn't just physically, like, it's your spirit. You know, so
Broken. Broken girls become wounded women. And so now I'm realizing that that broken girl is not just what I was experiencing, but what I experienced also triggered a lot of things that the little girl had gone through. And so now I'm constantly working, you know, and I'm looking at this pattern. That's all my mama did, you know. And I remember having this friend say, Keziah, what are you afraid of? And I was like, what do you mean? She said, man, you be having 3 jobs at one time.
you're not alone. I mean, listen, we do that, and your mom did that. I mean, I can't speak for all women, but you know, when you have all of that weight, even if your experience isn't, I mean, you've had an excruciating experience in parts of your life, and it's like, even for people who haven't had that are raising kids, it's heavy.
It's heavy.
It's a lot, and you'll find a way to get some relief.
Yes.
You know, people do all kinds of things. They have all kinds of vices, and work can be one of them.
Yes.
Because when you're a mom, I feel like work is easy. Even if you have a very difficult job with a lot of pressure, it's like
easy.
It's not this. And you love this so much, so it's like so threatening not to be able to manage that all at once.
Absolutely.
And so your friend was right to ask you that, because 3 jobs.
Yes.
Because you can manage that.
I can manage that,
Yeah.
right? And so looking at that, like, well, I watched my mama struggle. I was there, and I remember losing everything that I had as a little girl and come home from school and see everything put out to the curb. And not knowing I was carrying those pieces with me as I transition into this woman. And so for this moment, I'm pausing and I'm looking at generational cycles that I'm repeating in my life. And it's just like, is it too late to break this? You know, and where do I start? You know, I'm working because I'm afraid. I'm afraid of becoming homeless. I'm afraid of having to go back home. I said, Mom, I'm not going to be, you know, the one that got to come back home, you know, and trying to live up to those standards that I set for myself.
Yes.
And again, also fighting past these cycles and so work. And like now I work out for my therapy, you know, it's calming, it's relaxing. I don't have to have a goal set. Working out is just therapy for me.
Yes.
But when we go back to me working, it was really my therapy. It was my time away from the noise at home or having to walk in there and be triggered, you know, having flashbacks, fear that, is he in this home? Did he, you know, and just living in turmoil. and terror. And so I realized, like, I gotta give myself a break, you know. And so eventually I did that, and then I met someone in this state that I was in, messed up. And I think one thing that's hard for women to admit is that hurt people hurt people.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't believe in that. And when I say it, I come from that experience of trauma. Now, although I'm a survivor of sexual abuse, I've never been a person that ever did that to someone.
Sure, right.
There is that statistic where if it happened to you, you would do it to
someone else.
Right? And that's not true. And I know there's more people out there that they have never became that abuser.
Right.
I speak from a point that everything my ex-husband was to me, I became the monster. I was hurt. And I get into this relationship, and this guy was wonderful. And I felt as if he was like just ordained to be in my life because what I went through and the layers that he helped peel back. And I remember becoming violent, physical, for no reason. You know, it was something that I internally thought because it reminded me of where I came from.
Sure.
And when you're triggered, you trigger it, and it could come out verbally, physical. And I was just so angry where, you know, I swung and I hit him. And, you know, and great guy, he just looked at me and said, "Love, you got to go get therapy.
Yeah.
You need help. You're broken." You know, at this time in my life too, I'm working as a correctional deputy, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And when you think about that, being young, the work environment was also stressful.
Yes, and moments of violence, I'm sure.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And bringing work home. And that was, you know, one thing, you know, you bring this home, you know, you yell at the kids more and, you know, and you got to go get help. Now, this guy, I didn't live with him. You know, he would come to my house, I would go to his, but he saw me and he loved me through my brokenness. And I couldn't accept having something so healthy.
Right. Well, you probably thought you didn't deserve it.
Exactly. Like, and I was asking those questions. Why are you so nice to me? Why are you not asking?
Like skeptical, like.
Yes. I still had that mindset that love was verbal abuse. Love was mental abuse. Love was financial abuse, right? Love was physical. And that's how my ex-husband made me believe that unless I'm doing this to you, this is what love is.
Right.
And this guy was far from it. And I was the monster. And that monster realized she just was not healed. And everything that I went through, it was just inflicted on me. And I was really just in this survival mode. I gotta survive.
Sure.
I'ma hit you before you hit me. And I got into therapy right away. And here it is. I fill out my paper for, you know, divorce, all this that I went through. And this is what I'm here to talk about.
Oh, yeah, when you're asked, well, what brings you here?
Yes.
Why did you seek this out? Sometimes it's like, do you have another piece of paper? Is there another screen I can keep?
Yes.
You know?
Yes. So I'm just talking about everything that I went through in my divorce and the marriage. And during these sessions with my therapist, he saw the little girl, right? He saw beyond my here and now, that present moment. And he started asking questions about my childhood. And so in these sessions, I'm being triggered. Why are you asking me that? I'm here for what I said.
Right.
No, I think this is connected and, you know, and I'm breaking. I'm walking out. I'm never coming back.
Yeah. Well, this is another person that wants to help you.
Yep.
And so again, it's like
I'm
you can't
guarded.
accept that.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he wouldn't give up on me.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave me some homework to do. Mm-hmm. And I finally said, the broken girl is the wounded woman, mm-hmm. but give permission for the wounded woman to be healed. Mm-hmm. And so I go back and I have this homework done. And this was the first time ever in my life that I talked about the rapes, mm-hmm. the molestation, the sexual abuse. Mm-hmm. And it was like that, the root of everything, right? Like everything that I suppressed, mm-hmm. I smiled, I acted tough behind mics. Finally, mm-hmm. I was finally vulnerable without having to put on a facade. Mm-hmm. And I finally started to feel like I'm starting to be free. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to walk in my truth. What happened to me can't define me, mm-hmm. but all this time I was a lot, right? It, just letting it fester and covering up, the things beneath the surface. Mm-hmm. So yeah, here it is, Keziah, you're so angry, what's going on? And it's like, that's the tip of that iceberg.
Yeah. It's my marriage.
Mm-hmm. It's the marriage,
mm-hmm.
right? It's the abuse. It's the loneliness. It's the hopelessness. Mm-hmm. It's all those things. And instead, no one was asking, what happened to you? Mm-hmm. What's wrong with you? Like I had a problem.
Yeah, like it was you.
Yes. Yeah. And it kept me guarded. Mm-hmm. And my therapist, I felt that difference where it was just like, what happened to you mm-hmm. when you were younger?
Like someone cared.
Yeah.
Someone cared.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking in my head, like, I know I didn't put that on that paper. Like, man, who is this man? Right? Like, yes. And that was really the journey to my healing, mm-hmm. That really gave me that confidence to say that if I can confront this, mm-hmm. I can confront everything that I went through mm-hmm. in my marriage, even the errors that I made. Right. I knew I shouldn't have married him. Mm-hmm. And I put my trust in man and not God mm-hmm. when I went to certain people, leaders, and told them, the Lord told me not to do it. Mm-hmm. And they convinced me that I did not hear God. Mm-hmm. And so again, that was like a hit to my confidence. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, God doesn't, so in this journey that I was on, I was not loving God like I was. Mm-hmm. So now not only am I losing sight and I lost sight of who I was, I lost sight of, God, mm-hmm. my relationship with him, because I was so angry where I then began to say, you didn't protect me, God. Mm-hmm. If you're real, why didn't you come to my beck and aid? Mm-hmm. And as I look back now, he was always there. Mm-hmm. It was, I just couldn't see past my own traumas, my own hurts, mm-hmm. my pains, and just continuing to go. I never paused. I never paused just to see the beauty. And part of that was I'm still alive. Mm-hmm. Because he had threatened me so much that he was going to kill me. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going on in my career. Mm-hmm. I'm soaring in corrections, and my kids are starting to have everything they need. Here it is. I'm making some big money for my age, and, and it was like, all I need now is this one job, and it's doing what it does, and people are pulling on me. Mm-hmm. Can I have this? Can I do this? And I'm just blessing people. Mm-hmm. And then I hit this dry place again in my life because my kids are feeling like, Mom, you're never present.
Mm-hmm. How old were they at this point?
So at this time, my oldest would have been Starting off in corrections, he might have been like 7, 8.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
You're still young though, because this started at 17. 18.
I'm still young. Absolutely. And and my daughter, she is just still this little girl by now. Gotta be like 1 and 2 or 2 now. They're 5 years apart.
Okay. Yes.
Yes. And so again, I got a great support system.
Yes.
My firstborn, spoiled, her being the first girl, spoiled, rotten. I never struggled with having a babysitter.
Yeah.
They
That's
were
amazing.
always with family. Yeah. That wasn't an issue. Getting jammed at work, always had a babysitter. Can't come home, all right, see you in the morning.
Yeah.
It was those things. But I realized that what was changing for me in therapy, it was still being blocked from my work environment. A woman in corrections, we gotta act tougher.
Yes, I can only imagine. I mean, I haven't done it, obviously.
Yes,
but yeah.
and I'm telling you, like, going through that training, they were harder on us. They talked about fraternization and how the men will prey on women more, and and so. If I ain't learned nothing else, like, don't fraternize, And so I get in there with this tough, personality, and I never come from that. Again, a great upbringing. My mom really raised us in great suburban neighborhoods. I went to great schools. And so even today, my kids are like, Mom, like, you don't know nothing, my driver's license expired today. And yesterday, my daughter is like, Mom, what you about to do? And I said, I got to go to the DMV. My license expired tomorrow. She was like, Mom, like, they give extensions. Like, you just so on top, and so they're, it's
so just nice of them to educate.
Yes, right. Yes. And, different. But this is just kind of like who I've always been. And again, a lot of great parts of my mom, that resilience, taking care of business, staying on top of things, it stayed with me. But, still growing up, in these, beautiful neighborhoods and stuff like that, you get me and a girl like me in corrections, and people didn't want it. Like, I'm talking about from friends to family. Keziah, that's not you. Keziah, that is not you. It's going to change you. Please don't do it. Please, please, please. I'm like, no, it's money. Like, I got to come up. My ex-husband stole. I got to ammy up my money again. And that's all I cared about. And going in there, I'm telling you, I was making grown men, inmates cry. My mouth, taught and learned by my ex-husband.
Yes.
Right? So still healing, but still holding on to the same thing that hurt me.
Well, now it's a tool.
Yep. And letting you know your words ain't phasing me. My ex-husband used to say that to me. Good job. And making laughter about it. But when certain things did pierce,
did hurt,
I'm clapping back. And my clap back was piercing men, grown men. And now I'm looking at it as a badge of honor.
Yeah, now it's power.
Look at him. Yep. Look at him. And I realized as I got into relationships, long-term relationships, my mouth was a weapon. And when I was on this healing journey, and even during during corrections, I had to call a couple of my exes that I was with in long-term and just ask them, why did they cheat? Why weren't they committed? Why did they put me through the things I went through? It's because although I know I was a great person, I had flaws too. And if I'm on this healing journey, I gotta be able to look at the girl in the mirror. I gotta be able to admit my wrongdoing so that when I am married, that all these flaws and all these, shortcomings, that I'm totally healed from that now. But I need to know. And these guys come from all walks of life, but they all said the same thing and they don't even know. And they said, man, Keziah, you a great woman. It was me. I needed to grow up. I wasn't ready. And I said, no, you got to dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
I need to hear the hard stuff. And they said, and again, they all had things in common, right? They might have said it different, but it felt in the same, fell in the same category. And it was things like, you wear your heart on your sleeve, and you're such a giver, and it's easy for anybody like me with the mindset to take advantage of somebody like you.
You're like a target.
Big time. You're a giver. Stop giving so much of yourself and let a man give to you first. When you, the way you are is just like, oh, I know I got to keep her, so I'm going to go out here and do what I got to do, knowing she going to be faithful and home in her career. And it was, bottom line is that they just knew I was a great woman. I had some flaws I needed to work on, but they saw opportunities to do what they wanted to do because they knew I was still going to be there.
It served them.
Big time. You know, and even they spoke on my confidence. Like, you know, you were the first girl that never like asked for my phone, went through my phone, and, you know, altercations. It was, you know, and again, some of these things are positive, but I'm like, nope, I need you to dig deeper. But it was also coupled with, you got that right to ask, you know, can I see the phone, or why you didn't, you know, call me when normally you do. And it was little simple things like that. Like, you got too much confidence, not just in yourself, but also in the people you with, and we're doing things right under your nose, you know. And so I just had to learn, like, you used to advocate for yourself, right? You have a right to know if you are loved and cherished. And I think part of that was also that trauma. Right? See, and this, so things are still coming back. Well, why I felt like that was a red flag. I turned it a little pink. It don't look too bad. You know? And, you know, and so it was like, nah. But it was the fear of being alone. Right? So I, you know, took a back seat from saying, hey, you know, you didn't call me when you said, like, what happened? And then when I called you, you know, I just took a back seat, because when I used to ask my ex-husband those things, I was every name in a book except a child of God.
Well, it's so threatening. You know, it's just like, you don't ask because you know, but you don't want to trigger everything you're about to endure if it comes to light. And so I took these things back to therapy. And, you know, and my therapist is helping me process, peel back the layers, and, you know, and just begin to heal from those things, and have conversations about those things that, you know, these guys that I had relationships with, you know, and they were great men, you know, and just, they weren't ready, you know, but in having that conversation, I was able to learn a little bit more about myself and the areas that I still needed to grow in. And so it led me to just be by myself for 6 years, celibate and single. I needed to heal. And what I learned, and being a psychotherapist today, we had therapy, we show up. And I tell my clients, it's not about showing up. It's about, when you leave this office, what are you doing about what you learned? And in therapy, I'm like, I need to just get rid of everything. Dating, I fully cannot get back to the whole me, you know, the healed me, until I do the work. And when distractions come in, it's like, oh, I'm good. Yep, don't need therapy anymore. And I finally said, nope, I need to be alone, because I'm easily triggered. I wasn't really confident. It was a facade that I put on. And yep, some of those questions I did have in the back of my neck, you know, but I never asked, you know, and, you know, and so it was like, nope, I got to do this work. And so 6 years I was by myself,
healing, reflecting, going to therapy, and really getting back to the whole woman now and not the wounded woman. I was still in corrections during this time, transitioning. I'm getting elevated in, in law enforcement and, and things of that nature. And I'm raising my children. And then I meet my last son's father. Great guy. Great guy.
Is this after the 6 years?
Yes,
Okay.
this is after the 6 years. And a real healthy relationship. And it was just some things that I felt like I had worked on so much, where I felt like there were a lot of shortcomings. There were a lot of letdowns, career-wise, household-wise, supporting me. And I just felt like he just wasn't strong enough for me, and I ended that relationship. Him and I are great friends. We co-parent very well.
Amazing.
Yes, and again, that's a great guy. I think I was on another wavelength, and maybe I just moved too quickly, jumping in that and really didn't take my time, in that, and really being able to see this bigger picture of his life. There were things that he needed to work out. And I think for the most part, it was more like we needed to do this separation, in order to maybe come back together.
Sure.
Right? It wasn't like an end all.
Right.
Right? Like, you got to go take care of this. I realized I need to really kind of stay in this lane, but take care of some of these other things internally that started to develop, and, it was more of that, oh, here you go again, another failed relationship. You're just like your mom, here you will never be married. You will have all marriages like her. And so now it's just like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So now I'm feeling like I'm still repeating cycles, but you're supposed to be the healed woman.
But you did spend a lot of time on yourself.
I
The
did.
thing about a woman who spends a lot of time on herself, really digging in and figuring things out, that's the kind of power you want in life. You know what I mean? That's actually healthy power. It's just then when you seek out a relationship, you have standards. It's not the fault of anybody else if they don't meet those standards.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you have to step in it to understand that you've grown and now you have standards, because that's unfamiliar. You didn't experience that before. And I think, as parents and just women, and men can do that too, but to spend time with yourself and really dig into who you are, you may not know, but it is really powerful to do that. And and it's okay to be alone in your head and try to figure that out. And then be cautious of who you let in there, because you spent so much time on that. To admit, like, even if you call it a failed relationship, even if that is a cycle, it failed in a different way, and that's growth.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that, because that was something that I struggled with doing, was advocating for myself, because I was afraid of being alone, because I wasn't ready for people to be like, oh, again, Keziah, like you just was in this relationship, you just did all this stuff, like, and not wanting to hear that from people. So when I was able to just say, look, we just need this separation, I wouldn't have been able to do that 6 years ago when I was with him, right? During that time, not even 8 years from that time, but it was the work that I was doing, where it's like, you're not happy, you're seeing red flags, don't make them pink, don't make them green, right? Yes, you gotta get out. And, because too, what happens if you stay in this, the questions was, Keziah, do you go back to the old you?
Yeah.
Right? Will things develop where the roles might reverse, where you start to feel like you're in that marriage again? you know, and so it was like, nope, let's just have a conversation. And again, this was a healthy relationship, you know, and so it made it a lot easier for me, though, to walk in vulnerability with him. And so, you know, eventually now I'm just really, again, focused on, you know, the children and building, soaring. I'm expanding my career, doing all these things. You know, I'm getting on different platforms, you know, poetry in me is really blowing up, you know, people are wanting books, you know, and it was just like, I never thought about writing a book and having all this poetry and like just doing that. And I look at myself today and it's just like, man, I wish I would have done that, you know, and so it's not too late, and you know, and that's something that I'm working on. But you know, here it is now. I continue, you know, this career in, you know, in corrections and law enforcement, and I'm now getting this master's degree while doing it. And now mental health is hitting my family. And because I'm repeating the cycle of my mom, I'm not seeing it happen and develop in my own home.
Gotcha.
And my daughter, you know, went through mental health so much where she had several inpatient hospital stays. A lot of that was rooted from her dad, him not being there, him not wanting a relationship with her. We are later finding out she has these siblings, but he is spending time with her siblings. She's finding out this, and now like, well, what's wrong with me? And I tried to reach out and to him in a very nice way, and he just kicked it back. He didn't want that relationship, told me to literally die, go to hell, wherever you go, just leave me alone. It was a real nasty email. And at that time too, I'm like, how do I bring this to her?
Right.
You know,
well, she's fragile as a kid.
She's fragile already. And so time goes on, and you know, and I'm just really trying to help her just see the blessings that she do have. And you know, and you know, despite how bad the marriage was, I created this memory book, you know, for her. And, you know, and I love always seeing it with her, or, you know, in her room, even as she got bigger. And, you know, I still taught her about who he was. And one of the biggest things that we as women, moms, have to stop doing is talking bad about the fathers to our children. They are already going through things because the father is absent. Adding the trauma on to what we've experienced, you know, and the things that they might have said, it adds to our children. As my kids get older and, you know, and being on platforms, they're learning more things I've never said. Or they're just old enough, and it's like, now I could tell the truth, you know. But I feel like, and this is just my personal belief, they're gonna grow up. My daughter grew up and see it for herself.
Yeah, they do learn over time.
They learn over time.
You don't even have to say anything.
You don't.
Kids are very perceptive.
Yes.
They understand. And the other thing they wrestle with is that's half them.
Yes.
So they're obviously were horrific experiences, but in a developing child's mind, they're half them. So if all they hear is bad, then half of them probably is bad. And that's the perception that they'll have. Because they're young and they don't know how to process all of that.
Absolutely. So, you know, one thing that, and I want to backtrack just a little bit, but my oldest is 26 now. He's married in the Air Force. He's now reserved, I should say, after serving 6 years. And so he beat statistics.
Yes.
Right? He beat what everybody thought he would become. And he also is one right now breaking a cycle that I had repeated. And I raised my children to say, don't be like me, be better than me.
Yeah.
You know I'm my children's role model. You know, they see me strong. They you know, the ways I've taken care of them. I know, like, if I was to pass away, my kids would just honor my life, you know, outside of what I did for our family and just how I got me back together.
Yes.
Right, how I protected them. And my daughter now is 21, but she went through a lot, and also her you know, hospitalizations came from being bullied. You know, moving from Milwaukee to Fond du Lac and facing racism, something my kids didn't experience, didn't know about, you know, and having that, it was different. And I'm not recognizing she's going through this state of depression. She misses Milwaukee. She misses, you know, her friends. She had to give up, and she didn't have a voice, you know, to say whether, because you're young.
You're the kid.
I'm the mama, I'm running the show. And so I remember she ended up writing a letter one time at her, you know, and this was probably her last hospitalization. And as things happened, her suicide attempts got worse, okay?
Oh, dear.
And I remember her crying on the phone, and she had wrote a letter, and this was something that they do in groups. And she said over the phone, reading this letter, how I'm not present.
You.
Me. You're there. You do
That is so
everything
hard.
for us, but you're not present. You know, and it's just like, that's something my mom did. You know, okay, the food is ready, yep, gotta go to work. And we just at home taking care of ourselves. And I repeated that cycle and not showing up for my kids. You know, getting somebody else to step in for activities. I gotta go to work, I gotta go to work. And I worship corrections. I worship the money. I made it a god, where I neglected my family because of fear of being broke, fear of having everything taken from me again, fear of facing homelessness, right? Fear of being judged. You gotta work. Fear of my kids, you know, having lack and not enough. And
The other side of that, you know, I know all of that sounds very negative, but the other side of that is you had purpose there. And you had
big time.
People valued you there. And
Yes.
it actually is tangible. You show up, you get paid. It's important what you're doing
Yes.
there. And that is part of the draw, because when you're a mom, you don't get that. I mean, you
don't.
have to look for it, and
Yes.
it is there.
True.
But it's not the same.
Yes.
And so having a tether to something outside of your home, I don't know, it feels good.
Yeah, it was
you know?
rewarding.
Yeah.
It was rewarding. I mean, you hear offenders say, "Oh, Miss Love, you really blessed me." You know, so I had a good reputation of not looking at people's record while they were in there.
Sure.
And you meet anybody, that's one thing that they say, "Miss Love never looked at while we were here," you know.
You just saw them as people.
As people, I always met people where they were at. I've had so many offenders reach out to me, find me on Facebook, just to be like, "Man, that talk you had, hey, it's me from such and such." Man, I promise you, like, since then, I never went back. I had went back to prison like 10 times, that one talk, you know, and just these beautiful success stories. When I left the Fond du Lac County Sheriff's Office, they were calling me like, "Love, like, the inmates wrote letters, they drew pictures, like, do you want us to mail it or you want to come and pick it up?" And I have a box with all that stuff. It was rewarding. So going back, like going to work, there was purpose there.
Yeah.
You know, I knew I was meeting people where they were at. I knew I was making a difference, which is how it segued to me becoming this therapist. When I was in my undergrad, finishing my bachelor's finally, my professor had came to me and said, I need to be your mentor, but right now it'll be conflict of interest. When you graduate, reach out. And during that time, she said, you need to leave here and then go get your master's to become a licensed therapist. And I'm thinking like, I don't want to do no more school, right? Going back to elementary school, and you would never think of this, but school has always been hard for me because in elementary, teachers put labels on me that I couldn't comprehend. I had, reading comprehension, reading problems, and I got held back. If I remember correctly, I was held back a grade, which is also why how I graduated. But what they're saying was, I was already like ahead when I started. I was already ahead when I started school, where technically I should have fell back, but because my age and how I turned that age before right? And so they were trying to convince my mom, like, she just needs to go back. But in reality, I didn't. But if I remember correctly, they did hold me back, and the reason why I feel like it was a holdback, because I remember graduating, being a class of 2000, but I'm also like, if that never happened, I would have never met my first bestie, Natasha, right? And all those things, and just how life orchestrated. But I always had this, I would more say like that imposter syndrome, the self-sabotage, because when I struggled or got a bad grade, I could hear the voices in my head. You're not good enough. The reason why you failed is you didn't comprehend. And so hearing my professor, I'm like, nope, I'm surprised I made it this far. And I had to work harder because I still carried that title of not being good enough, not being able to comprehend, don't understand what I'm reading, let alone what I write. And so that stuck with me great lengths of my life, right? And even, today, and I feel like that's now something that I'm overcoming, but it'll be certain things that'll take you there, and you're like, nope, and you just gotta cast it out, no, like, look at how far you've come. And so that's something that I worked really hard, and like I said, even today, because thoughts come, and as I tell my clients, nope, you got to go straight to the positive thought, and so I meet with my professor after I graduate, and she becomes my mentor, but being a licensed therapist is nowhere in, my dream right now. I'm like, I'm happy with where I'm at, and being at the jail, one of the qualified mental health therapists see me, and she just wanted to say how the inmates talk highly of me. And she goes, have you ever thought about doing what I do? And I said, nope.
Someone else thought that for you.
But somebody else did. And she goes, you should really do it. And I started talking to my coworkers, and they was like, Love, you should really do it. Like, we could really see you, how you operate here. We know we love you. They see me, And they said, but that means if you graduate, we lose you and you go start a career somewhere else. When I started in corrections, because it was so toxic and because it started to change me, I had to take a break away from it. I didn't solely quit, but I had to let them know, like, look, I'm changing, making grown men cry, and my mouth, like, I just need some time away and off. And that was another time where I had to reflect, right? Why are you this way? And even in that reflection, I had thought about just looking at everybody like they was my ex-husband, no good, and treating them, you treat me wrong, I'm gonna treat you wrong. And I had that mentality, but nope, I swore in, or I had the badge of honor. And I'm probably one of them COs that just knew I can't go in here and inflicting pain, even though they do it. And so that time away helped me be able to take that step back and make it 10 years, in that field. And then look at all the testimonies and all the people that I have reached, you know, behind those prison walls, behind those prison cells. And, you know, and so I say, you know what, I'm going to apply for UW Oshkosh. If I get in, I get in. If I don't, the better. Right?
Yes.
I ain't want it.
Really, hopefully
yes.
not.
And I get accepted. I make it through their interviews, and I'm like, man, you got an interview for this? Like,
Yeah.
you know, it was different and it was tough. And they're like, we got to make sure that when people are sitting in these seats and you got a client across, that you are the right one for the job. People's lives are in your hand. You know, and I'm like, oh, I come from that. That's that. When I walk in that jail, their lives are in my hand.
Yeah.
And so when people say that's a big transition, I say, no, it's not. I was in mental health every day.
Oh, for sure.
I met everybody every day where they were at. You know, I saved lives, drug overdoses, you know, attempts of suicide, you know, depression, just sitting with people in anxiety. And I was that CO giving people, you know, coping skills. Here you go, you said this. I would get on the mic and speak into the dorm and spit poetry for them. I will walk through the dorms and spit poetry. Sometimes I'll stand on the platform and just give it to them, you know, and they loved it.
It's really a gift.
It's a gift. And I loved where I was at because Fond du Lac County really allowed me to be me. First, you know, Black being there, you know, in the jail, they allowed me to be me. And they didn't take from that. I came from great experience, but I really appreciate that they allowed me to just be me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now here we are, me just doing poetry, me being a motivational speaker, talking about all the things that I've gone through, how I've healed, how I've overcome, how I'm still trucking along, and just being this inspiration to women, you know, to even men, you know, the younger generation. And I got to a place where I realized I didn't have to be ashamed of my story. I didn't have to be ashamed of the journey. I didn't have to be ashamed of where I come from. And I can speak on that. And so in 2017, I launched my nonprofit, Healing Scars. My great friend, April Bentley, she has a nonprofit called Rubies.
Okay.
And I'm contracted with her where I use my curriculum and other things, poetry, motivational speaking for those girls. And it's geared toward people that was the little girl like me, the broken girls, to help them not become the wounded woman.
Thank goodness.
Yes, and so these girls come from all walks of life, the same, domestic, sexual abuse, childhood, sexual assault. You know, you got all of that, sex trafficking, sexual exploitation. That's where my heart is at, and I do that as well, you know, through, you know, my nonprofit, and, you know, and so I'm just still trucking along and doing what I love doing, and that's reaching people where they are at, meeting people where they are at, and hoping that my life story and my journey, where I came from and how I've overcome so many things, will help the next woman. And you know, and I would say even to women today that although we might overcome certain things, it doesn't say it's the end of our overcoming.
No. You can just teach yourself maybe to recognize it and how to do that going forward.
Yes, going forward. That's it. You know, and it's a beautiful picture, regardless of all the bruises, of all the scars, of all the wounds. It's still a beautiful picture to be able to go back and look at, because it speaks of how you've overcome it. And so when I think about, you know, where I am today, like I I'll be talking about my Job season, Job in the Bible. You know, he had everything and lost it, you know, but then God, you know, he was able to reap it all back, you know, and of what he had sown, and it wasn't the end. And, you know, this has been a season where, you know, I'm telling you, I just felt like I was knocked to my feet and the breath in me was taken from me. Losing my brother and my uncle, 2 men from addictions that I tried to save them from. I moved them into my home. You know, and then learning about my brother's death, you know, my brother should still be here. There was a lot of the what ifs, you know, what if I fought harder? Well, because I probably wouldn't have did you any good. My brother was grown. He could do what he wanted to do. My brother was shot about 7 years ago, and he became a paraplegic. And, you know, and because of that, he was on a lot of medications. What do you hear? You know, what is the theme? You become addicted to those meds. Those meds lead you to street drugs. And, you know, and my brother met the wrong demon. And ultimately it took his life, introducing him to a street drug that was just too much for his body, a paraplegic. And, you know, it was hard. And, you know, I had a lot of anger, you know, and it was like I'm more angry than I am grieving. You know, I wanted revenge, you know, and revenge in the right way. This person finna go to jail, you know, you're not gonna see the light of day. And it was weighing on me where I was sick in my body. And I was invested in breaking my brother's case. And it was eating me away slowly. And doctors today are still trying to figure out why I'm having these fainting spells, throwing up, passing out. And I mean, I just had a recent test. The camera goes down. You know, you go to sleep. I don't remember nothing that happened, but still that result came back great. But yesterday I was talking to a great friend of mine, and, you know, in Wilbur, he said, Keziah, you know what that was? He said, I went through the same thing, same symptoms. And he said, it was the trauma that my body was going through.
I mean.
And I'm like, that's it. So my first time that I was hospitalized, the doctor came in the room and said, ma'am, we keep running back all this blood work. We thought it was your kidneys. We thought it was your pancreas, your liver. And he leans over and says, the only other thing that can cause this is stress. What's stressing you out? And I just broke down in tears. In that hospital, I was just like, my life had fallen apart. So during this journey, this new journey that I'm on, I was homeless for a whole month and a couple of weeks. Didn't tell anybody. Certain people knew. Buried my brother. 6 months prior, it was my uncle. My son, my youngest son, who's 17, his father's father died, so my son's grandfather. So we buried him a week apart. So his grandfather, then my brother. Yes, and like I said, I'm really close to my son's father, so I'm right there with him. You know, we're there. We're great friends, and supporting him, and you know, showing up for that, being strong for my son, and supporting him. And then we got to get booted out. My son had a place to go with our dog. Where my son is at, our dog is there. She leaves. I think it was anxiety, not used to this. Where is my mom? And she leaves, tries to go back home to our old house that they were selling. They put our house up for sale. And she got hit by a car.
Oh my God.
So another death, another burial, another heartbreak.
Of course.
You know, Stormy was our life, and that really broke my son, though. It was like him in tears, and him and Stormy, Stormy was mine. And Stormy traded on me for, you know, my son.
You know,
all the time, you know. But, you know, my son is just really good with dogs, animals, and, you know, and so we go through that, and we're truckling through, and I'm still taking these attacks on my body, and I'm still showing up at work, you know, and people just see you as strong.
Yeah.
And no one would ever say, Keziah, you need to take a whole month off, you know. And if I had to say something to women,
Yes, please do.
this is one thing that I say to women, and I say this in my sessions. Our jobs, they replace us. They will mourn when we're gone. If we get sick, they're going to have somebody to step in. But at home, we are not replaceable. My kids would never find another mama like me. They will never get that opportunity. And so what we have to do is, even when we feel like, oh, my job is going to suffer because I'm not there, they're going to have to scramble to find somebody. Or it might be like me, my clients are going to really miss me. They're going to really need me. But at the end of the day, we are replaceable when it comes to our families. I think about my children. I'm not. And so I realized in this year that I'm going to always put myself first. I'm going to always put myself first, regardless of what it looks like over here. Because if I'm not even healthy and well, how can I take care of the people that come and sit down and want me to take care of them and hear them? And so I just made this vow that I'm going to always take care of me first, whoever gets mad. Because no matter what, whether I die, I get sickly ill, maybe can't return to work, they're going to be right on Indeed.com filling my position.
And they may have some emotion around that, but the job has to get done. And you bringing that up, I mean, that was really, you know, powerful and important for women to hear. And I do coaching and for mental strength. And I think sometimes, you know, women and moms feel like putting yourself first or making yourself a priority is selfish. But if you don't start there, then you won't be the person you could be for the people who not just need you, but rely on you or want things from you or whatever that is. Maybe that is your career too. They're calling on you there too. And if you're not making yourself a priority, it's less that you can give because you're tired and you're spent and everything you have has been put into somebody else or some other goal or whatever. Serving others, which is important, and you should do that. But a better you is better for them and better for the world. And so you're exactly right about that. Putting yourself first, your health, and everything else.
Yes, and I realized, like, as being a mother in this motherhood in my professional life, I realized that I'm not going to always be able to give 100%, and being okay with that. And sometimes I might have to shift my focus off of my career and my goals and the things that I'm ambitious about and give more time and attention to my children, my household, right? Some of the things that I might have neglected. And then that sacrifice might come with later nights for my job, you know, and that sacrifice might look like that. But at the end of the day, being comfortable with knowing I don't always got to show up and give 100%. And each day I might not be able to give it. But the beauty that I look at is that I showed up with what I have and I gave it my all as if I gave 100%. You know, I remember during the time my brother passed, I had a client come in and she had her daughter, and I see her daughter, and mom stands up and she grabs me by the hand in the waiting area and she goes, "You shouldn't even be here." She said, "I heard Fond du Lac is small, that your brother passed." And she said, "And the only reason why we're here today is because my daughter felt Like she wanted to put a smile on your
That's so
face,
sweet.
give you a hug, and share some things with you today that'll probably make you happy. And she said, and that is the only reason why I didn't cancel her appointment. And I just thought, like, sometimes our clients will take care of us too. You know, they see us. Yes, sometimes before we see ourselves. But it's in those moments that fill you up a little bit, that give you that stride to say, I can probably give about 30% more today.
Yeah.
Right? It's being refilled and recharged.
And it's what makes you show up the next day.
Yes.
Even if today was hard.
Yes. Yeah. How I'm going to show up the next day. What do I want to do differently? What will be different, you know, today from yesterday? And that's it. Just keep showing up. And breaking through some of those barriers. Yeah, that was built to really destroy me, to set me back. Yeah.
Well, it didn't, because you're
Thank
here.
you. Yes.
This has been so great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So before, I mean, I feel like we could just keep going.
Yes, all day. Have a sleepover.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else? I mean, that was very powerful what you shared with moms there directly, but is there anything else? I don't want to miss something that you think might be something else that you should share on the show here. And if not, that's okay too. I just want to give an opportunity.
You know, I would say one of the things is, as women, mothers, you know, and all you that are in careers and thinking about careers, start getting to know who you are. You know, internally, spending time with yourself. Those 6 years that I was by myself, I learned so much about myself, where even today I'm dating myself. I take myself to the movies. I take myself out to eat. My kids think it's so foreign. Like, Mom, how do you do it? Well, I spent 6 years doing it, that I continue to do it. So, you know, like literally the last 12, 13 years of my life, this is what I do. I date myself. And I know my worth. So in that, my standards are never lowered. And don't ever feel like you ever got to lower your standards just to be loved, to have somebody in your space. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's, if you got to be by yourself, be by yourself. That right one will come. But I promise you, it's a blessing in singleness. It's a blessing when you're by yourself and you're learning to love yourself. And I always say, how can anybody love you when you don't love yourself?
That's exactly right.
Yes.
And I think, you know, as moms, we don't allow ourselves the time to dig in and do that. So this is a powerful reminder to do that.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much for coming on.
This has been beautiful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And happy birthday.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please remember to keep your perspective, but don't be afraid to step into somebody else's, like we have with Keziah today, just to learn and see what life can be like somewhere else. Be resilient. Keep showing up. The world needs you. Your kids need you. You need you. Continue to have goals and pursuits and stay after those. And remember, you don't have to show up 100% for those every single day, but it is important to have those. And don't forget, you're not alone. There are 2 billion of us moms around the world, and we're here for you.